everyone. My name is Victor. I am the Occult Technician, and this is Mind War. Season 2, Episode 11.
Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar.
Hit that light. Gang. Squad. Go. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a Bloomfield nigga. But I love all Saginaw trenches. The young niggas standing on business. Fuck around, we gon' get right with you. East side, west side, north side, south side. Of the Saginaw trenches. East side, west side, north side, south side. Of the Saginaw trenches. Now let me take you to the north. Where a young nigga throwing up phones. Projects back to the zone. Fuck around, get shot in your dome. Muddy ass cup, 2 cups, styrofoam. If we go broke, run straight in your home. They remix the dope way better than the song. Bad north side bitch, can't leave her alone. Now let me take you to the east. Where they red flag throwing up beats. From zone 6 to number streets. When they said it right back, they really mean it. He was a good nigga, but he turned to a demon. Popped out the cut, nigga, you ain't even see it.
That was Gnarly Ray-Bans with his hit song Saginaw Trenches. Welcome back to the Mind War podcast, everyone. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. First, I want to thank everyone who came back to the Mind War podcast for Season 2, Episode 11. And I say that because I know that over the last few episodes, we had to discuss some very racially charged subjects, particularly anti-white racism. I know this is a difficult subject to talk about. Most people believe that even mentioning anything about this subject makes them racist. That's just not true. The subject of anti-white racism is used all throughout the media. It is one of those perfect examples of gaslighting in the mind war. And actually, it's kind of a bad example because they are so over the top with it. They just show their hands openly. Gaslighting is done best when it's very subtle and, it's harder to spot. It's actually more powerful that way. But, I think we covered it well. We again talked about some difficult subjects. It was hard to hear some of those things. And, I want to give another big round of applause for Uncle Vic. That was so great to have him. I know he's around here somewhere. I'm sure he's upstairs listening to the live feed right now. So thank you again, Uncle Vic. And again, we talked about the United States military and the issues that they're having, finding white male recruits to join the military. We talked about the type of wars that America may be fighting over the next few years, where it's, again, just another war where white men will be fighting more white men. And we have to ask ourselves, with the leadership of today's military, is this something that I really want to get myself involved in right now? And we talked about the overall population of the earth, because again, we are New World citizens, right? We're no longer just thinking of ourselves as American citizens. We are part of the New World Order now. So we need to think globally. So when we look at that global population, we saw that today it's estimated that the white population in the world is at 17%. And by their estimations, it's going to go down to 10% over the next 30 years. That's really difficult. That's a huge drop. So we really have to wonder what is going to cause that major drop, and is that something that maybe we could avoid? Maybe 30 years from now, the actual number of white people in the globe could increase, maybe to 20 or 25%. Who knows? It doesn't have to be the way that they are predicting it. And really, that's going to be up to us, okay? So, again, I know it is a difficult subject to talk about. I appreciate you all coming back. Let's take a look. Can I get the house lights up? Okay. All right. So, yeah, I see a lot of people are still, there's actually hardly any seats open today. Okay, that's great. Wait, hold on. I'm getting a message from the producer from upstairs. Okay, he's saying, folks, we actually have more followers and fans now than ever. Okay, so I appreciate that. I appreciate you all being here. Again, I was a little worried. Controversial subjects. We talk about them in an outlandish way. We bring our characters in. Uncle Vic, he was here to kind of add to the emotion and stir up some of the emotion. Again, trying to break some of that hypnotic spell that the mainstream media has over you. Break some of that brainwashing that's been built into us to where when we talk about these type of subjects, we automatically feel that they're too taboo or too scary, or we feel guilty for some reason. Guilty of being white. Isn't that what Minor Threats said in one of their songs? So, folks, again, thank you for being here. We're not going to be talking about that subject anymore for the rest of this episode. We'll see if it pops up in later episodes. I guess it depends on the mainstream media and how much anti-white racism they want to push in their gaslighting programs. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Welcome back, folks. Here on the Mind War podcast, I'd like to introduce a new segment that I call It Takes One to Know One. And on today's episode of It Takes One to Know One, we're going to be asking the question, is Leanne Kreischer a witch? Now, for those of you who may not know who Leanne Kreischer is, she is the wife of one of America's most beloved and famous comedians, Bert Kreischer. She is an amazing mother, a fierce businesswoman, and probably one of the most beloved wives in all of comedy today. Leanne portrays herself as a Southern belle, a real Christian woman. So as I consumed a lot of Kreischer content, for those of you that are fans of comedy, it's really hard to not to. They are everywhere, so you eventually are going to come across some of their content. And, for those of you who are asking, Victor, why are you asking this question if this woman is a witch? Well, throughout my consumption of that content, I started to notice things that were a little strange. And as many of you know, on my Instagram, I practice the dark arts. I am so excited to share with you my spiritual practices, how I do them, and the amazing results that I've had from them. And I started to notice things throughout the Kreischer content that started to kind of match up to some of my spiritual practices. So I thought we should look at that together. So this first piece of evidence, now folks, I'm going to be watching on my phone, and you can watch from home there. So the first piece of evidence is from a podcast called Where My Mom's At with Christina P. So let me paint the picture here. So Christina P. is the wife of comedian Tom Segura. Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer are best friends. And again, Leanne is married to Bert. So we have a couple here, famous comedians, entertainers, right? So on this podcast, this episode, Leanne was for the first time opening up to an event that occurred where comedian Ari Shaffir dosed Bert with Molly while they were at their home recording a podcast. So from what I understand, Bert was about to literally, after the podcast, sit down with his family for dinner and then get on a plane to start his tour. And so what Ari did was, very dangerous, and it was upsetting. And so while Leanne was talking to Christina P. about this, she said something that I thought was pretty interesting. We're going to watch that here together.
Blook, and now you're under my control. Blook, and now you're under my control. Blook,
Mind control.
and now you're under my control.
Interesting. Mind control is one of those topics. You think of brainwashing, you think of hypnosis. It's not a topic that you often hear ladies talk about, and I don't mean to be sexist about that, but it's more, you think of brainwashing, mind control, hypnosis is more of like from sci-fi movies, from comic books or video games. It's just not something that you hear women often talking about. So for her to automatically, say, boop, now you're under mind control when she's talking about her husband getting dosed, that just stood out to me because, again, through my practice of the dark arts, I listened to a set of meditation tapes called the Gateway Experience tapes. And Dr. Monroe in those tapes talks you and teaches you how to become hypnotized, right? And so again, we take the low dose mushrooms, we listen to the tapes, we get into that hypnotic state, and then we listen to trance music while we move through the rest of our practice. So let's keep going with some of this interesting evidence here. So this next piece comes from an episode of a podcast titled Something's Burning. Now, this is a Bert Kreischer podcast, one of about a half dozen podcasts he stars in. And this was featuring a character named Jelly Roll and his wife. And so Bert mentions something here in this video that really caught my attention. Let's watch it together.
We should never go on vacation together. This is going to end up with me and him in the same bed snoring with sleep apnea masks. And you two sitting crisscross applesauce doing your tarot cards.
Folks, did you catch that? Did Bert just say that Leanne does tarot cards? Well, folks, tarot cards, we know, are definitely not a Christian activity. And as you know, through my practice of the dark arts on Instagram, I pull tarot cards every 2 weeks. So again, that really stood out to me as something that was a little strange. So let's take a look at this next piece of evidence here. And now this is really near and dear to my heart. This is from a video for the Tops Off World Tour announcement. So Bert was about to go on this big comedy tour. And in this announcement, he walked through his home office where in the background you see all of his female employees. And I believe Leanne even appears in it at one point. But in the background, and this is what was so exciting to me, on the mantle above the fireplace in their home office, Bert has been so wonderful, and he has displayed my Triangle USA art, right? My USA flag art. It's right there on his mantle. I was so excited when I saw that. But there was something else on that mantle that caught my eye. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video together. Okay. All right, let's slow it down here. So we see my art on the mantle. Okay. Let's slow it down one more time. Okay, so there's my art. Very clear. He's walking across the room, and what was that, folks? What was that black circular item at the end of the mantle there? Okay. Folks, we're going to have to take a look at some still images here. The first one that we're going to start with is Bert with my triangular art behind his right shoulder. We see it there clear as day. Thank you again to the Kreischers on their mantle. Okay, so we're going to go to the next photo, and you see that Bert's moved a little bit. You can still see my triangular USA flag art, but towards the end of the mantle, something dark appears. Okay, so let's look one more time. Okay, now, can all of you see that dark circular item at the end of the mantle? Here's one more picture from a different view. I mean, there it is, folks. That looks like a black mirror to me, okay? So we're going to compare that with some of the art that I've done on Instagram. On the screen right now, you're going to be seeing some of my art that has the black mirror that I use. It looks exactly like it. So again, as we as we go through the practice that I do every 2 weeks. Again, take the mushrooms, listen to the Gateway Experience tapes to get into the hypnotic state, that mind control, that brainwashing state, right? Then we listen to trance type music, which allows us to stay in the hypnotic state. Then we pull the tarot cards, okay, and look into the black mirror as we stare into the black mirror, the hypnotic music, allowing us to get deeper and deeper into the hypnotic state. That's what we do. And the things that we see and learn inside the black mirror are amazing. So why is there a black mirror on the mantle at the Kreischer's home office? That really caught my eye. That was very interesting. And I'm telling you, black mirrors are not something to be messed with, folks. They're very powerful. And, again, we look back to that question, is Leanne Kreischer a witch? And, I'm going to let you decide that. But really, it kind of, these pieces of evidence really make me ask more questions. And that is Leanne Kreischer the head of a coven of witches that are made up by Bert's female staff? Because again, he has quite a bit of female staff. He has 2 daughters. Are they a coven of witches that maybe used mind control to control Bert like some type of golem, forcing him to do this work as they amass a fortune? Wow, folks. That's some pretty interesting accusations. But again, please understand, this is not a witch hunt. That's why it's called It Takes One to Know One. As a practicing witch myself, I saw these things that stood out. I saw these things that I do in my dark arts practice. And again, all of these questions started to swirl. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as I look through Bert's Instagram and, through a lot of his social media, Bert really actually seems like a nice guy who's living his best life. He seems very happy. He seems like a happy husband and father. He's, an amazing business person, works harder than most people that I've ever known. So if all of this is true, and again, this is just conjecture, we're just asking these questions, but good on you, Bert. Congratulations, man. You have people that love you, and I think that's pretty awesome. So again, I think this was a great segment of It Takes One to Know One. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Welcome back, folks. Let's jump right back into the First Earth Battalion Operations Manual. We left off on page titled International Ethical Combat. Let's see. Any Earth Battalion member that suits up for combat before the cameras will bear the flag of their country on one sleeve and the symbol of their religion or belief system on the other sleeve. The unit member from the country in question uses a loudspeaker given to all battalion members to talk the battalion through the population of any country. Okay, so again, we got pictures here of the First Earth Battalion, these new mind warriors here, these citizen samurais in their uniforms. And, maybe I'll throw up a picture of Uncle Vic here because he has his American symbolism on there. He has the symbols like you see behind me on his sleeves. So it's so funny. Again, as we read through this book, this is the first time I've read it, and so many of the things that we're seeing here together I've actually already done. It's pretty awesome. But I like the idea of not just having your country of origin on your uniform, but your belief system. So people kind of know a little bit about you. and more than you just being some type of soldier or troop or something like that. And again, this is ethical combat on an international scale. We're going to move away from that physical war. That's why we're here fighting the mind war. So the next page is peace technology. We talk about indigenous music and words of peace. The battalion carries the symbols and sounds of peace. Symbolic flowers, symbolic animals, country flags, and spiritual symbols. So again, as we go through our work in the First Earth Battalion, whatever it is that you and your little team are doing to better your community, making things safer, happier, healing each other and your friends and the community at large. These are some interesting pieces of the author calls technology, right? A lot of these things he talks about. Again, this book was written 40 years ago. We see new technology being advanced every day today. So some of this is a little outdated, but it's just new ways of thinking and new ways of getting our message across, whatever that message may be. Next page, new soft tactics. This is a typical battle scenario for the First Earth. They parachuted in that morning and stood in two lines facing each opposing army. The Earth Battalion satellite above beamed this image to the globe. The Earth watched as this potential catastrophe awaited the conscience of one or both of the commanders to act, for they would have the bloody war that the Earth Battalion people in their path before they could attack, and the world would know who started it. Okay, so, these again are fanciful techniques. The author's talking about, battles from long ago, like you have the good guys on one side and the bad guys on the other, and he's kind of talking about the First Earth Battalion will come and fall in line in between them. That way, if either commander attacks, their blood is on their hands, right? And again, that's a symbolic way of thinking, because any of the work that we do through our outreach in the community, obviously, we're not going to just stand between two warring factions, but it really, I guess it depends on who the battle is against, right? If it is starvation, on one side you have the people that do not have access to healthy foods or the amount of foods that they need. And on the other side, you have the limited resources to feed them, or people that are gluttonous in their eating, right? So as a First Earth Battalion member going into your community, if this was something that you wanted to take on, and helping people understand more about food safety and making sure that everyone is getting the portion that they need to survive and thrive, right? Because again, here in the United States, we see a lot of people not getting enough, and then a lot of people getting so much more than they could ever need. And it's difficult. This is one of those issues that we face in the old world order today, the old paradigm that we're all so sick of. We're sick of watching people just shove just garbage in their face and becoming just massive, unhealthy, just, it's too much. It's too much. Because then when we look at that in contrast to people that are starving, that have too little, it's really sickening. It's really disheartening to see. And part of the New World Order, part of the new paradigm that's going to be built, again, I've talked about it in past videos, I think we're going to see changes to the way that we purchase food. I think that food under, again, say your first 3,000 calories of the day, and that's being very generous, 3,000 calories, it should be very cheap. It should be a very limited cost, right? Companies and the government and the citizens work together. We got to figure this out. But anything under 3,000 calories should be extremely cheap. And the way that the cost could be offset is that people, in their 24-hour period, anything that they purchase over that 3,000 calories, right? That's when the food starts to become extremely expensive. So again, it would offset the price. The companies are still making the same amount of money, but now you have people that are lower income are going to be able to afford the food that they need. And big fat fatties, you can still eat as much shit as you want and just balloon up to giant disgusting monsters. Go ahead. It's just going to cost you more. Okay. And then of course that'll trickle into the healthcare system. If you are purposely unhealthy, your healthcare should cost extreme amounts of money more than people who try to actually be healthy. Okay. This is where we're going in the world because we can't control ourselves. Nobody can figure their own shit out. People keep going to this excess and whatever it is nowadays, it has to just be to the most excessive degree. There's no, middle path anymore. And because of that, that's why you see that pendulum swinging of the haves and the have-nots, right? Well, all of that stuff is going to be figured out. And we're going to do it with the tools that are being built today. Don't you worry, you globalists out there. You're building the tools, and we are going to enforce them. Next page. What people can do, sympathetic actions. So we have things the world can do in connection with the First Earth Battalion intervention. So we see the group of First Earth Battalion teams there, and they are in the middle, and they are doing an intervention in, again, some type of situation. Again, we just talked about food, right? If you are dealing with gang activity in your neighborhood, and this is something, the culture that you've grown up in, we can maybe use some of these tactics for you, right? If you grow up in a community that just seems so brainwashed into everything that's kind of nonsensical, and you just see a lot of waste. Again, these are the type of things that we can intervene in. We can have an International Day of Support, simple gestures that can be done by folks at home. Again, a lot of this that I've talked about all throughout the Mind War podcast, these changes that we are going to make in our lives, they're small, they're incremental. We're not worried about making these drastic changes right away. That can be too difficult, can often come crashing down upon us. We're going to take these things step by step, just right here at home. Right in campaign, okay? So just coming up with your own ideas and slogans, right? Economic boycott. So we see that all the time. We see companies being boycotted against, normally, again, for fucking nonsense, for nonsense reasons. We saw this major beer brand, one of the biggest beer brands in America, being boycotted because of some stupid marketing scheme that they tried to do, right? And it's like, the whole country went crazy and was like, yeah, we're never going to drink this beer again. We're boycotting it. And it's like, you're boycotting it because of a stupid commercial, some stupid marketing scheme. How about boycotting it because it's fucking poison? It's getting people addicted. It's making people sick. It's making people throw their lives away, ruin relationships. It's making people get DUIs or worse, getting into accidents where others are killed. That's why you should be boycotting poison manufacturers, not because of fucking marketing. It's like, good try. We almost did it. We almost did a good thing by boycotting that company. But again, we did it for the wrong reasons. This is part of the mind war. This is one of the most frustrating parts of the mind war. Just when you think people are going to do something right, they do it for the wrong reason. It's like, fuck, man, we were almost there, but we're going to get there, okay? We're getting there. We're having this conversation calmly today. We're trying not to let this type of, boomer brainwashing or whatever it is, we're trying not to let it trickle down to the rest of the generations. Gen X, we're trying to stop it here, folks. We're trying to stop the trauma. We're going to break these generational trauma chains, okay? But it's going to take work on your part, okay? We can do it together. Freedom, sympathetic action, a free-form sympathetic action, a local assembly. Again, we work local here. A call-in campaign. Again, kind of old technology. The author's talking about calling into radio stations and television stations. I mean, you can still do it today. It's an interesting type of guerrilla marketing, but with social media, there's all sorts of different ways to get your campaign information across. And actions that be taken by spiritual groups. And again, we're not talking about traditional religions here. Here in the Mind War, we try to explore religions or spiritual practices that are outside of the regular religious boundaries that are set for us. Again, I think those boundaries are set in order to control us. They criminalize a lot of what I do here in my practice of the dark arts on Instagram. Again, the occult technician, you see the work that I do. Throughout much of history, the things that I do today would be outlawed. And we're starting to see it grow more and more. I don't consider myself a Satanist, but we saw in the news recently, they tried to put up some type of satanic, imagery at a Capitol State House somewhere next to some kind of Christmas decoration. And some tough guy, state representative came in and smashed Satan and broke the head off of this ornament or whatever. And the whole thing was nonsense. And it's, again, I think that should be considered religious bigotry, religious hatred, the man who did that. And again, I'm not here to stand up for Satanism. I'm not a Satanist myself. But, it's like, again, we're trying to be open to new thought processes. We're trying to be open to new ways of spirituality because we see the aftermath of the other options. And why does it seem like we're getting less and less options nowadays, folks? It seems like that bottleneck is being, shrunk down to you only have a few choices. And ultimately, isn't that exactly what the devil wants, right? Isn't that what you're so afraid of? This devil, this Satan, Lucifer, whoever you're so afraid of out there, you religious folks. And guess what? By having only 1, 2, or 3 religious options, he's done his best because he's killed all the other gods, and now there's only one left. He'll get him too, folks. Next page. Getting ahead of the future. Warfare currently compromises about 16 dimensions. In 1990, there will be 5 new additions, or 5 new areas the taxpayers must bear, or 5 new possible ways for the ultimate conflict to be triggered. So the 1990 environment, again, 30 plus years ago, we have multi-dimensional challenges even back then, and they've increased 1,000,000-fold since then. The 5 new dimensions that the author's talking about, I don't even think I can say this first one, folks. Directed energy weapons? I'm sorry. I'll take it back. Maybe I'll bleep that out. Holy cow, we can't be talking about directed energy weapons. That is a no-no. Space-based platforms, okay, space warfare, Star Wars, we know it's coming. Nuclear terrorism, we've all heard about that. Changed public awareness. That sounds a lot like mis and disinformation to me. You remember that doing your own research is a threat to democracy, and changing your public awareness is unacceptable in the old world order. Next is changed international collective conscious. Okay, this is really important. As a new world citizen, I'm talking to all of you out there, everyone who's listening to this in every country. You are a new world citizen. You are a citizen of the new world order. We are no longer just citizens of some nation state whose governments are at war with each other, because the people, we are at peace with each other. And we're going to maintain that peace despite what these nation states attempt to do. We're going to reject their war and their war fighting. That's right. And that takes a changed international collective conscience, and it's happening. We see it all around us. We need to work these dimensions now before they begin to work against us. Oh boy, that was 30 years ago, folks. There's a lot more work to be done. Next, we have, next page, benevolent weapons. Methods are at hand to positively use the emerging dimensions of warfare. Working the positive dimensions from A to D, we can eliminate the danger and generate examples of cooperation. So we have the United States military. Well, that's something we've been talking quite a bit about over the last few days. And again, for those of you who feel rejected by Uncle Sam and are no longer interested in enlisting in the United States military, don't forget, join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar, because Uncle Vic is always here to accept you. So here we have the United States military and the Soviet military. Again, this was written 30 years ago. If they team together, we could have military cooperation. Okay, so right now, our government officials and our DOD leaders are trying to set America on a path to war with Russia, to war with the Soviet military. And again, does anyone in the world really want that? Can we take a vote? Can we take a vote here in the New World Order? Could we have maybe the entire population of the Earth? Because Earth is all of our home. We are all equally, own it, live in it, love it. Can we take a vote together to decide, do we really want to go to a greater war? And if the answer is no, then maybe we take that small handful of people who are pushing for this war, and we'll find some new work for them to do. Let's see. Changed international and public awareness becomes the public is ready for cooperative solutions. Are we there yet? Are we there as a world population where we are ready to cooperate together? So think if we have two options on the table today. It's either go to a wider world war, this World War III that everyone's talking about, that's coming any day now. Okay? Or what if we take all of that wasted energy, all of the wasted resources, all of the death and the killing, and we put it into new cities, rebuilding our old cities, healthcare for the people that are currently alive instead of death care being made by the Department of Defense and all of its manufacturers, right? Again, you guys can make all the money you want. I'm not here to try to stop you from making money. I'm saying let's do it by building something awesome. I've never understood this tactic that they use where it's like things have to be destructive and destroyed, have to be negative all the time. Is why don't you just take a negative area and say, oh yeah, this area sucks. We're going to build something better here. We're going to build something so awesome here that people are going to put down their arms, right? And stop wanting to fight each other because we've given them a better alternative. Why don't you try doing that? You guys are out here in these giant, massive arenas giving these big speeches and all your rich billionaires and trillionaires friends, right? Try fucking building something that the people actually want. We're going to talk about this later. In another episode, we're going to address these folks. Okay, so stay tuned. So all of this combined military effort is really going to help us stay away from things like directed energy weapons and the space-based platforms and the nuclear terrorism. All that sucks. Nobody wants it. Next page. New ways to win. If you look for clear examples of where the free world has an advantage over the world of non-believers, you will discover two resources that clearly stand out in our favor. They are God and microelectronics. The beauty is that you can use the microelectronics to project the true spirit. Brains work like that. Hence the field of psychoelectronic weaponry. Okay, I mean, this is some mind war topics. This is right up our alley here, folks. So microelectronics, you think of your cell phone, your smartphone. We are going to use that to project the spirit. And how do we do that? One of the ways that I try to teach you through the Occult Technician and my work on Instagram and future seasons here in the Mind War podcast, again, listening to the Gateway Experience tapes. I have them all downloaded right here on my phone. I use these exact same Beats headphones combined with the mushrooms. This stuff really works. We use those microelectronics in our lives to project the spirit. So this is going to help, let's see, the projection of advanced states of awareness to slighten the enemy. Okay, so think if we go into that battlefield and we start to heal them with some of these tools, how much cheaper would it be to be like, hey guys, here's a phone. It has the Gateway Experience tapes. Here's a giant bag of mushrooms and some headphones. How about we all sit down for a week before we kill each other? Okay, let's just agree that before we go out and start fighting each other and dropping the bombs and shooting the bullets and destroying everything, for 1 week, we're going to listen to the tapes. We're going to take a bunch of mushrooms. Everybody's going to chill the fuck out for a little bit. And after that week, if everybody's still all upset, then you guys go for it. My guess is some of these wars would never start in the first place. The projection of advanced levels of physical performance. The projection of waveforms to decompose violent weapons systems. And the projection of ideals through the mass media. Again, these are all great ways of getting our information out there, thinking of new ways of living, and understanding that it's not just, like he says here, the non-believers. So think about that. We are believers in the sense that we believe in a better world, that we believe that the future is going to be better. We believe that we can work towards something greater than we're dealing with right now. We believe that the old world order is dying. The old paradigm is dying. We're doing away with the gaslighting and the manipulation and all the hate and all the wars and all the disease and all the awful things that are tearing us apart. And we believe, as believers here, right, that there is something better, that we can work towards something better, a better future, a new world order. We're not afraid of it. We're not afraid of that term anymore, no matter how much, Alex Jones and all the other conspiracy theorists out there tell us that we're supposed to be afraid of the new world order. There's nothing to be afraid of, folks, because as we know, it's coming whether we like it or not. Next page. Soft combat principles. International power is more than ever determined by world opinion. The television camera has changed the power base of leaders and countries in just days. Clever leaders have marshaled their people before the lenses and changed the course of history. The First Earth Battalion understands that this kind of power is resolved in favor of the force that uses the higher ethic. That forms of ethical combat have been evolved for just this purpose. Okay. So again, what is the world's opinion about the war that is the wars that are raging right now. They're actually, we see them getting worse. Every day the provocation gets worse. Every day the headlines say a new, more emboldened attack occurred. Every day it's a new group is getting involved in the violence, right? But again, if we were able to take an opinion poll of the people of the world, is this something that we want? You can still make your money. You can still be filthy rich contractors who manufacture amazing machines. Just manufacture machines that build new hospitals, new roads, new ways of transportation, new ways of feeding each other, new homes, new entertainment. You can still be filthy rich with life care, not death care. We're going to get there. Next page. Soldiers exchange. Systematically defusing the planet has proven difficult, but almost overnight, the contingent of soldiers and their families could be exchanged between the Soviet Union and the United States. They would live and work and serve as a constant reminder that any party tempted to take nuclear advantage of the other. Yes, there are many creative options other than the arms race. Who's in charge of creating those options? So I think the author there is saying, if we were, again, as nation states, instead of being so divided, if our population was really more mixed around the world, okay? So if every country, if every nation state became a multicultural country, then maybe the nation states would be less likely to have these major attacks against another country if they know that so many of their people live there, right? Now, again, this is going to be something very difficult to change. We see it happening here in the United States. We see right now this mass immigration into our country. Now, I knew that on September 12th, 2001, the fact that our southern border was still open was going to be a problem. And the very first thing that came to mind after the events of 9/11 that really started to help me recognize that something was wrong, right? Besides the attack themselves, like that I was falling in line with. The mainstream media, the government. I was still an active duty Marine. I was falling right in line with the war plan, the patriotism, all that. I was still a very patriotic person. But when I noticed something was off, when I noticed that the official narrative was a little off, was when the southern border never got secured. And so again, we had George Bush Jr. as president during 9/11, and I remembered back to being a teenager and hearing George Bush Sr. talk about the New World Order. He talked about a world without borders, where people were able to travel back and forth freely. And that's when I started to realize, oh, okay, so something is up. We're not living in a singular country anymore. America isn't what the president and the government is interested in securing or caring about, right? They're interested in the New World Order. Again, George Bush Sr., we played it on a past episode. He says it's coming whether you like it or not, right? He says we will be successful, and we will be, right? So, again, that really made me realize, okay, something's off here. There's something bigger going on than even just these attacks that just occurred and the fact that we're going to go now fight in the Middle East for the next 20 years or whatever. I knew something was wrong. Next page. Intelligent initiative. In the martial arts, one learns a number of possible counter moves against the different types of possible enemies. These practice battles are done over and over until they become instinct. Likewise, in the Earth Battalion, all plausible engagements are war-gamed until each soldier has the routine cold. In this way, the battalion can operate in the absence of commands from its leaders, who may be out of touch because of the new realities of modern warfare. So, again, having contingency plans for whatever we're doing in our life. So let's bring it back, because we've talked about a lot of bigger issues today, but we're going to bring it back to the reason we're fighting the mind war today. We're taking the global tactics that we find in books like Mind War and the First Earth Battalion. We're applying them to our personal lives in order to overcome some of the issues that we have to deal with. And one of those things is as we make these small changes, as we work towards the Aristos, the best possible scenario for our current situation, we're going to make small incremental changes. And with each of those changes, we're going to try to think of countermeasures. So once that change occurs, we might want that change to result in something very good happening. But that change, we might not get exactly what we want from it. And we might see other things happening. We might get other results that we weren't prepared for. If you look over the last 2 years, and again, since I really started this work, I did not prepare countermeasures for a lot of things that I was doing. And that's why I'm here trying to be as open with all of you as I can. So when I first came out to my family, not in that way, when I first came out to my family as an artist and a dark arts practitioner, somebody who is going to start displaying their art online and making a podcast, this is all things that I was very excited about. But when I shared these things with my family, I didn't quite understand where it was going. Again, I still don't today, but I have a clearer picture now than ever. So trying to share these ideas that were still in the ether, right? I was still trying to make them turn into something solid. What you see here today, this podium, this microphone, right? All the art that you see around me. Before this became real, it was just a thought in my head. It was just small incremental plans, right? When I made this podium, I had no idea what I was going to be doing with it. I literally just found this material and I was like, I'm going to build a podium. I mean, it was just that strange. The same thing with the art you see in front of me and the art you see behind me. Again, I didn't quite know exactly what I was doing, but I was being led through each of these steps, right, to make these changes. But the reason I talk about it is, again, make sure the changes that you're working on, do them covertly. Try, even though it's difficult in the beginning, when your life feels like it's falling apart, when you're at your lowest, the last thing you can do is want to plan and make all these big plans and all this stuff, right? But as you go through things, keep them close to the chest, right? You don't have to go out and propagandize everyone in your life about these big monumental changes that you're going to be making, because if you do, a lot of them are going to come against you because of the fear that they have in their own lives, right? They don't want to change their bad habits. So if they see you starting to change your bad habits and become healthier, that threatens their addictions, okay? Whatever their addiction is, whatever their bad behavior is, it threatens it when you start to become better. And so if you announce these big changes and then they start to fall apart, again, now they just have more ammunition to use against you to keep you down, to keep you in your addictive, sad, belittled state, because that's where they can maintain their own addictions, their own sad state, and that's where they have more control over you. Next page. Connecting an army of light or an army of darkness, whichever, light or dark, whatever floats your boat, No judges here. The author just seems to like this army of light. So we see a very complex molecule with the Earth Battalion composed of warrior monks. They go anywhere, anytime for peaceful actions. The action brigades are composed of service-oriented brotherhoods. They participate in local action and projects. The devotional division, composed of devotees in non-denominational meditation groups. Oh, I like that. They participate in collective meditative prayer work. And then the conscious core, composed of major organized religions. They participate in major evolutionary projects. So in a lot of ways, we do see the major religions of the world today coming together for these giant planetary evolutionary projects. From what I see, it's, yes, maybe evolutionary. They may be becoming more organized into one, but I think in a lot of ways, what their plans currently are, again, these major religions, I think they're going to leave a lot of people out. And unfortunately, like I talked about earlier, I think it's going to get to a point where if you don't believe, you're out of the club. It's going to be big trouble. So we're trying to move away from that. We want to accept everybody's religion. And again, that's where you have devotees in non-denominational meditation groups. Now, I think I'm going to speak on this more in the future. But one of the things I noticed and I thought about the other day was, the churches in my neighborhood, the churches in your neighborhood, you have these giant buildings that receive all of these tax benefits. Yet, I still have to pay the property tax on my home, and I'm not allowed to go to that building and practice my devotional faith, my spiritual work. They would reject it. They would tell me, you're not allowed to do that in our sanctuary. But again, isn't that a public building? It's very strange, these churches and the kind of relationship that they have with the government. I think it's something that needs to be addressed. And again, I think in a future episode, we're going to dig deeper into that. Next page. Getting ready. Information is part of learning, but should not become the process. Information should feed a realistic approximation of the challenge to be faced. Simulations or challenge environments, as they are called in the Earth Battalion, constitute the primary framing approach for the future. This is a useful educational model for all evolutionary systems. So, running these simulations, running these models on what is coming in the future, again, the secondary and tertiary changes that may occur from something that we do. These models, these simulations are huge in the world today. We have very powerful computers and very amazing programs that can help us simulate all types of things. One of the issues that we see, though, is unfortunately these simulations, these modeling, they're politicized, right? Whoever is in control of the modeling is in control of the information. Again, I had a very utopian vision as a young man. As I saw the internet starting to grow, I really thought, this is it. This is an opportunity for the world to have the truth out there. And we really start to understand things, and we can build the utopian world that we were promised because of this unfiltered and real information. No matter how ugly and raw that information may be, it's still important that it's truthful and honest. But again, if a corporation, organization, or institution owns that model, they're ultimately going to be the ones that produce the results and show the results to the people. When I sent my children off to university, one of the first books that they showed me from their statistics class was a book titled How to Lie with Statistics. And I thought to myself, that's very sad, and And I said to them, this is what the mainstream is teaching you, how to lie with statistics. This is how you will become another a cog in the machinery, another brick in the wall. Of course, you'll be successful in your job and things like that. But I said, if you want to really make a difference in this world, tell the truth with statistics. They're going to hate you for it. They might imprison you for it. They'll definitely demonize you for it. But you would actually be making a massive change in the world if you just told the truth with statistics. That's what we try to do here on the Mind War. Next page. Soldiers' values are good. Dwight Eisenhower said, "Someday people are going to want peace so badly that the governments of the world will have to stand back and let them have it. Someday the soldiers of the world may come to their highest ideals and realize that only they can agree to disarm the world's time bomb." It's a pretty powerful statement, right? Someday the governments of the world are going to have to let the new world citizens have peace, right? We're going to demand it from them. I don't know how, but it's going to be peacefully. It's going to be through a international conscious change, a shift towards peace, a breakdown of our differences. We're not going to allow them to divide us anymore. We're not going to fall for their gaslighting or their manipulation anymore. And we'll find peace together. So that's where we're going to leave it off for today from the First Earth Battalion, because the next page starts chapter 5, and we'll leave that for the next episode. So, again, working through the First Earth Battalion. It's an operations manual by author Lieutenant Colonel Jim Shannon. It was the book that was talked about in the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats. It's a fun movie that's part of your Mind War extra credit. So thank you for being here for this part of the Mind War episode. Now, please stay tuned for a word from our sponsor. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. All right, welcome back, folks. I thought we would finish off today's episode with another very special guest. This is my very best friend. His name is Leo. He is a Boston Terrier. His color is champagne. He's such a great guy. I love him so much. I thought I'd share with you kind of the story of when he first came into my life. So my ex, who I had been living with for 3 years, for the first 2 years, she was very great at dropping clues about how much fun she had when she had a Boston Terrier and how wonderful they were. And, seeing Leo and I together today is really the perfect example of that meme of, the dad who didn't want the dog, but now they can't be separated. And that's really what we had here. It took 2 years to finally decide, I think it is right. I think we should get a dog. And so this was during the summer of 2020. So again, we were kind of in the lockdowns. During that summer, I got very sick, but it was with my disease. It wasn't with COVID. I've never had COVID. And the first 2 weeks when we got Leo, so, we called the breeder and we had to meet him in the next town. And we said, hey, we're going to meet you at Burger King. And so while we were waiting, I was like, hey, I'm hungry. I'm going to go grab a Whopper. And it was funny because I actually went into the restaurant. And at that point, the staff were like, yeah, I guess you are allowed in the building, but you're the first person in this restaurant besides staff that's been in here for months. So they were kind of shocked by that. It was kind of fun. So that's just a reminder of what time frame we were in. So we waited there for a few more minutes, and then the breeder came. He was a very nice guy. He's very professional. Takes amazing care of his animals. And we did the transaction, and we picked up this little fluff ball. He was so tiny when we first got him. And I remember we were sitting in my truck and just staring at him with awe and just kind of smiling. And he just ripped the stinkiest fart you could imagine. I mean, it was really something. And that's when we knew that he was perfect for us. So, that the first 2 weeks that I had him, again, I was feeling very sick because of my disease. And that was, like I mentioned in past episodes, that was the time where my mind really was like, dude, if you keep eating, it's just going to be painful. So the first 2 weeks he was here, I didn't actually eat anything. I was just drinking orange juice. I could barely get off the couch, and him and I, we slept together all day. And it was at the end of that 2 weeks that I actually went to the emergency room and started to get better health care coverage, right? So he's been there for some very important times in my life. He's been here through the whole process that you see on my Instagram, all the work that I've been doing. He's been right here by my side. Just today, it was nice and sunny out today here in the Northeast, and it's supposed to be the middle of winter. It's February, but it was beautiful today. So I took him to his favorite park, and we walked around. There's a little train track set up for, I think, the kids during Halloween. They have like a haunted train ride. So we always like to go there and walk through the train tracks. And then we go to our favorite restaurant, Culver's, afterwards. And I get him his own hamburger. He loves that little hamburger patty. And we just had a really nice day today. And then, of course, we came back home and slept for like 2 or 3 hours before I came down here to the Mind War Studios to record. But, Leo takes good care of me. I really appreciate him. I do my best to take care of him as well. I love him so much. And, I hope that you have a furry friend in your life, someone that you love, someone that you take care of and that takes care of you, that helps with all of your emotional needs. It's amazing what a pet will do for you. So, cherish your pets, take care of them, make sure you love them. And, they're one of the better parts of the Mind War. They're one of those tools in the Mind War that bring us joy and peace and love, right? And those are important things to do, important things to be open to in the Mind War also. It's not all just fighting the battles of the Mind War, okay? So, again, thank you all for being here. This is another great episode of the Mind War podcast. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And as always, remember, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.